Hi there, Natalie here with a new project for Altenew, and today I want to share with you a fun idea on how to create your scrapbook layout using the new mixed media inks. They're so versatile, you're going to be surprised what you can do with them. The new Altenew Mixed Media inks are very versatile, as you can do a variety of functions with them, from stamping to embossing to creating watercolor backgrounds. But the best thing is that these inks become permanent once you hit them, which gives you the ability to stamp on different materials besides paper. Today I want to give you an idea on how this magical inks, I'm going to call them, can create a very fun mixed media background for a layout. So I'm starting with frayed leaf, and my idea is I want to create a little bit of watercolor for my background, and I'm using heavy cardstock. This is actually double cardstock. It's 140 pounds, so I have not prepped it yet, so it's going to hold the mixed media nicely. And all I have done is I've stamped the ink onto a piece of acrylic or acetate in my case, and I dilute it with a bit of water until it's runny in the consistency of watercolor. And all I'm doing is I'm using a second piece of plastic just to help me spread the ink on my page. Now again, this is what is known as the packaging technique or the kissing technique, and all it does is just depositing some of the diluted ink and treating it as watercolor, and the plastic just helps you spread the ink, or in this case the liquid watercolor or the liquid ink, onto the area. And I'm gonna get a very soft effect. I want to work in layers for this background, so I'm gonna start with a really soft background or the color. I'm gonna go with the lightest color, and you're gonna see that it takes very little for this ink to become watery. It takes a little bit of liquid, and the consistency is kind of milky, and that's because of the pigment that's inside of the ink, and the results are genius. Now what I'm doing right now, as you saw me, is I'm lifting up the paper a bit and tapping it on my table. This is going to help me create those drips on the page. Again, this is just a soft background. I am going to add a few more layers on top of the watercolor, so just want something that is going to make this part of the layout pop. And this layout is going to take a turn later on, but for now let's just focus on the background. So all I'm doing is, like I said, I added some of the frayed leaf. I'm going to make sure that it dries a bit before I go back to the second color, and the second color that I'm using on this layout is Forest Glades, and I wanted to just deepen a little bit of the green that I already have on the background. So you're gonna see that again, I'm stamping the ink pad, in this case, onto a piece of acetate. I'm gonna dilute it with a bit of water, and then again I'm just gonna use the plastic just to help me spread, but I'm not gonna cover all the green area that I already had in the background before. I'm just gonna add the darker shade in certain areas. Think of it as just deepening the color, adding some dimension to the background. Again, this is just my first, in this case the second layer of mixed media. I'm gonna build upon this, but I just wanted to show you how many things, or how versatile these inks are, and the many things that you can do with it. So my first step is I'm just gonna use it as watercolor diluted. I am going to heat it a bit just to make sure that it sets completely, especially because I'm gonna add, like I said before, a few more layers of mixed media, and I want to make sure that this layer is permanent before I add water or I decide to move some of the ink. So just a little bit of heat. I'm using my heat gun. I don't want to over bake it. I want to make sure that the paper remains as flat as I can. For my next layer of mixed media, in this case, I am choosing to actually create a stencil look on my page, and for that I'm using again frayed leaf and Forest Glades, the same colors that I used to create the watercolor, but I'm gonna use my ink blending tool and the leaves and berries stencil to create the impression on the background. So all I'm doing is picking up a bit of the ink with my ink blending tool, and you're gonna see that I mixed the colors, and I'm gonna go on a circular motion on top of the stencil. I'm gonna try my best not to hit the edges of the stencil. I want to have those full leaves, and I'm gonna add extra pressure in some areas, and that's just gonna create that deeper color, and then kind of move the brush, or in this case the tool, just to create that ghost effect of the leaves. and I'm gonna try to add the impression right on the area where I have the watercolor, and I'm gonna extend it a bit at the top and the bottom of the impression. This I actually use a little bit of heat to set them in place, just because I know I'm gonna add more mixed media on top of it, and I want to make sure in the next step I don't move the ink. Now for the next layer of mixed media, I'm actually going to show you how easily you can emboss using this ink. For that, I am using the Feeling Dotty stencil, and I'm going to use a makeup brush. In this case, a sponge, and all I'm doing is picking up a little bit of the ink and literally pushing it on through the stencil onto the background, and that's going to create those pink dots that you see. I am using pure white crisp embossing powder to emboss or create that texture on the background. But when I added the embossing powder, I did not cover all the pink impression. I want to leave some of the pink on the background, and I just use my heat gun to melt the embossing powder. Now while my paper completely cools and sets, I actually went off camera and I am using the Hanging Gardens die set to create a few of those little leaf die cuts. And I just want to have white. I wanted to bring a lot of that leaf kind of outside look onto the page, because I'm documenting a picture of my kids, my niece and nephew. We've been in quarantine here in Toronto, and this is the first time we got together after almost 3 months of being in isolation. And we went out for a picnic, social distancing, but you know what, I just wanted to bring that really light, happy feeling onto the page. So I'm going to keep it very neutral and very green and happy. But one of the things that I realized when I brought the picture is that the background, the watercolor, is too much on the right of the page. So my solution is I'm gonna trim the bottom and the left hand side of the layout by 1/2 inch. I am distressing the edges of the entire layout, and I'm gonna back it or create a frame using one of the papers from the Celebrate collection. This is the newest scrapbooking collection from Pink Fresh Studio and Altenew. Is a collaboration, and I really love this really soft pink background. So I'm just gonna glue my layout right onto the pink edge, and that's just gonna move the background to the kind of center a bit more and give it a great space for my picture. I've transformed my picture to black and white just to make sure that it doesn't compete with the background and it actually goes nicely with the colors. And all I'm doing right now is using the papers from the Celebrate collection again, just to bring or to create some layers, bring some interest and make the picture pop. I added a little bit of foam adhesive in between the layers just to create a little bit of a lift and make sure that the picture kind of stands out from the page. Now here's where the layer is going to take a little bit of a turn. Once I started building it, I realized that the leaves didn't flow nicely when I had the layout or the background facing kind of in a column. So I rotated the entire page 90 degrees counterclockwise, and I love the way that the leaves kind of look like they're flowing into the page, creates a soft motion. So I decided to actually build my layout this way, and you're gonna see that all I'm doing again is just adding some extra interest to the background using the 6x6 paper pad from the Celebrate collection. And all I'm gonna do right now is just start gluing it onto the page and adding the die cuts. Now you're gonna see that some of the die cuts, this was a happy accident, I'm gonna say. I did not pull the negative pieces out of the die cut, so I'm actually gonna use those white full leaves with the detail looks like they're embossed. I'm adding a little bit of foam adhesive behind them, making sure that everything remains glued together, and I'm gonna actually kind of tuck them underneath the picture. Like I said, I wanted to give the impression as if the leaves are flowing through the page. And now once I have that, I'm actually gonna add a little bit of glue dots behind some of the die cuts just to keep them in place. Once I have that in place, I'm gonna say that it's just gonna be about embellishing this layout, and I'm gonna bring a few pieces of ephemera from the Celebrate collection. You can find all of this in the Altenew shop, and it's a very nice collection, very beautiful colors, and you're gonna love it. Now I struggle a little bit with the title for this layout. I wanted something really fun for it, but something that was gonna talk more about the sentiment, is because we were together for the first time after 3 months. So I am using the Mega Brush stamp set, and I actually gonna borrow a sentiment from the new stamp set, and that's actually a collaboration with the Stamping Village, We Stand With You, and the sentiment, it says we're better together. So I am gonna use the Mega Brush stamp set to create the word together, but the way I'm going about it is I'm gonna use 2 color inks for this. I am using Fray Leaf and Evergreen, and my choices, I'm gonna add Fray Leaf, which is the lighter color, to the entire letter, and then I'm just gonna kind of dip the bottom of the letter onto the Evergreen ink. This is gonna create a 2-tone effect, kind of a gradation of color on the letters, and I'm just gonna stamp the word together, making sure that the letters, when I stamp them next to each other, kind of touch a bit, just to give it that impression that it was handwritten. After that, I'm actually adding a bit of translucent pearled embossing powder, just to create a bit of the shine on the letters, and then I'm actually gonna fussy cut the entire word, just to give it that feeling of a die cut. Once I have that in place, I'm actually gonna add a little bit of foam adhesive behind it, just to prop it, and I'm gonna place it to the right of the picture, in the top right area of the layout. There's quite a bit of empty space there, and that's gonna balance the large area of the background, the mixed media that's at the bottom. Now, to complete my title, I'm actually gonna bring part of the sentiment from the We Stand With You stamp set, and the sentiment says we're better together. So I'm just gonna add ink. I'm using Evergreen in this case, just to the we are better, and I'm gonna stamp it right in the center, in that little space of the together die cut. Now I want to bring a little bit more of that kind of corally tone that I have on the background, so I'm gonna use the butterfly that is in the We Stand With You stamp set, and I'm using Frosty Pink and Coral Berry, which is one of the new inks, just to create a 2-tone butterfly. And I'm following the same idea that I did with the together letters. So I'm just, picking the 2 colors together and stamping it through my page. Once I have that, I just drew some lines, and I've added my lines of journal right at the bottom of the layout. Now I wanted to bring more sentiment to the page. I don't want to add more embellishments, because I think I don't want to lose on the background. So I am bringing the Courageous You stamp set and Evergreen Mixed Media ink, and I'm just gonna add a few of the phrases to some areas. I'm gonna a few to the top of the picture, a few to the bottom where I added my lines of journal, and that's about it. I love how this turned out. It was super fun to put together, to play with the inks, to see what I can do with them. I love the fact that there's a lot of green. Like I said, the idea of the layout came together because I was so happy to see my niece and nephew, and I hope you like it. As always, don't forget to ask me any questions if you have any about the layout, and I hope to see you soon. Take care, guys.